Welcome back to the Network Analysis series in ArcGIS Pro. This is part 3. We will dive into Service Area Analysis, a powerful tool for defining areas that can be reached within a given time or distance. If you're new here, make sure to subscribe because we have more GIS and programming tutorials coming soon. Let's get started.
Okay. So, using a service area analysis, we can find out the serviceable area of each facility, right? So, it could be the constraints of time, or it could be the constraint of your distance, right? For example, if it's the case of restaurants, or whether it be the case of each hospitals, okay? So, which all area is serviceable by a hospital in a 10-kilometer radius zone, or in a 5-kilometer radius zone, or if it's the case of we are taking the case of ambulances, so which all hospitals or facilities can actually service the area within the 5-kilometer zone or within 1-kilometer zone. So all those things we can do using our service area analysis. Okay. So for that we'll need the facilities, right? We have the facilities, we have the polygons lines, and then we have the similar the barriers. Okay. So for that first we'll need our facilities. So you guys can either import facilities from a point data, or what you can do, you can just directly digitize the facilities, right? So in here, I'm digitizing my facilities in this kind of area. So I have one here, I have one here, I have one here, one here, and maybe just one over here. Okay. So if that is done, I can just save that. Okay. So I have these kinds of facilities. Maybe I will change the symbol here. So maybe I will say restaurants. So I have these many restaurants in my area. Alright. So next, what I want to do is I want to actually find out my serviceable areas of these restaurants based on some kind of constraints. Okay. So if I come into my service area layer, travel settings we have, right? So if you check over to travel settings, we'll first find out which all areas can have, or we'll find out the serviceable area using the cost of time taken. Okay, so we'll see the time taken cost here. Okay, so if that is done, I can just click on OK, and then my direction, right? So the serviceable area, if you're checking about something like delivery, right? So deliveries might be the direction might be away from facility, right? So the delivery guys will be picking up their orders from the restaurants and moving away from the restaurants, right? So in those cases, the direction will be away from facilities. Okay. And next thing I can do is I can give out the cutoffs. Okay. So cutoffs. So which is the impedance that I gave here? Minutes, right? So it's a time. So I can give cutoffs as something like the deliveries which can be done within 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and 10 minutes from each restaurant. Okay. So this thing will give me the serviceable area of each hospitals within 5 minutes, 7 minutes, and 10 minutes time. Okay. So that can be done. And if I click on run, it will actually create serviceable area of each restaurant. Is it running? I want to join. Yeah, I think it is too much time, right? So maybe I should have given just 1 minute, 3 minutes, and 5 minutes. Okay, so let me just give the colors here. Okay. So now if you check over each restaurant, you can see the data has been generated in this polygons layer, right? So before it was empty, right now it has been generated on the polygons layer, and we have the cutoff values here. We have 1, 3, and 5. Okay. Now if you check over here to this specific restaurants, and if you check this polygon, right? So what is it? Its name is 0 to 1. So which means that all these area, right? All these places that falls under this specific polygon can be serviced by these restaurants within 1 minute. Okay, so which means the delivery guy can reach all these places within this pink polygon within 1 minute delivery time. Okay, and if you check out this green area, which means that all the restaurants, right? This restaurant can service all these areas that is in the green region. Okay, so which means the delivery guy that is coming from this restaurant can service all these places, right? So you can see these streets, right? All these streets he can reach within the 1 to 3 minute time. Okay, and if you see over this one, so the outer polygon, which means that the delivery guy can reach these areas within the 3 to 5 minutes delivery time. Similarly, we have find out, right? We have found out similar uh, serviceable areas of each restaurant. So for this restaurant, 1 minute time is only this much polygon. For this restaurant, 1 minute time is this much areas, and for this the 3 minutes time or 5 minutes time is this area. Similarly, it has found out serviceable area of all these restaurants. Okay, and now polygons are the serviceable distance, right? Serviceable area of each restaurant. So we have the pink, which means it's serviceable in 0 to 1 minute time. We have the green, which is serviceable in 1 to 3, and we have the browns, which are serviceable area of each restaurant in the time of 3 to 5. Okay, and if I change the cost to distance, right? So if I'm giving it length here, which means that all these units will be changed to kilometers. Okay, so if I change it here, all these things will be changed to kilometers. So if I'm giving, if I'm like, if I want 1 kilometer, so it is 1000, and I'll give 3000, and I'll give 5000. Okay, so now if I'm running it, it's not running. Yeah, now if I'm running it, you can see. So this inner polygon, it's visible of in the 1 kilometer radius, and these kind of areas, all these areas are serviceable within the 1000 to, I mean, 1 kilometer to 3 kilometer serviceable area, and all the other places are in the 3 to 5 kilometer radius, right? So that is the serviceable areas. And if you guys come over to here, you can actually change it to, if you want, polygons or lines. Okay, so if you give the lines here, then instead of polygon, it will be giving you a line features, and then the layer will be changed. Instead of polygons, those things will be change your lines layer. Okay, now if you go over here, so if you check this one comes under the zeroth layer. Okay, and if you check over the attribute table, it will have find out, right? So whichever times it takes from, and if I'm giving the mains here and running this, Oh, okay. The time constraints I didn't change it, right? So I'll have to change it to 135 and I'll run it. I gave 1000 minutes, 3000 minutes and 5000 minutes. That's why the whole area has been covered now. Alright. And the thing is like you can have polygons and lines here. So we'll have polygons layer and we'll also have the lines layer created. Okay. See if you check this over here. Yeah. So now if you check it, you can see that the polygons are also being created and as well as the lines are also being created. So you have the roots as well as your polygons created, right? For each zone. So that is this polygons and line. Okay. And the thing is like if you have the polygons done, okay. So if you have the polygons done, you can have what kind of polygons you need. Okay. So if you check by default, you can see that all these polygons are disjoint, right? All these polygons are disjoint. But then if you check, so see over here, you can actually have if you want disk or rings, right? So if you want this kind of polygons or you have rings kind of. So right now it's in rings, right? So what does rings mean? Now polygons are overlapping, right? So each polygons are disjoint different polygons. So if you are giving disk here, then it will actually create an overlapping kind of polygons. Okay. So did you create the disk? Yeah. See, it's actually created a overlapping kind of polygon. So let me see. I just used the selection. Okay, okay. Select. Yeah. So if I'm selecting this one, the outer one is selected. Now if I'm selecting like this, you can see, right? So instead of different disjoint polygons, you have one, or all those three polygons are overlapping, right? So others will be falling on top of each other, right? So that is this. I hope you can see this, right? Each polygons are, yes. So if you're choosing your, yeah, if you're choosing rings here, then it means that each polygons are disjoint, right? So no polygon will be falling on top of each other. There is no overlap, and each polygons are disjoint. Okay, so it will come under the like if you want to find out the area of each zone, then it's better if you give the disk, right? Then it will give you the normal time taken. And if you want only the specific times and all those things, then you can give something like your rings. Okay. So that is one thing. And the other thing is if you want your data polygons to be overlapping or dissolve or split. Okay. So this one is when your so if you see over, so you have two different restaurants, right? So you will be creating the polygons for two different restaurants. So this will decide if you want these polygons to be overlapping or if you want them to be like splitted. So am I do I have any overlapping areas? Anyway, I just give over another time. I just give 10 minutes time there. So if I am giving 10 also, okay, and then I'm just running it. Okay. So now if I'm checking over my outer polygons of this restaurant, it goes like this. Okay. And the outer polygons of this restaurant goes like this. So there's an overlap of two different areas, right? You can see there's an overlap of these three restaurants serviceable area, right? You can see this overlap. But if I'm giving my dissolve here, then it means that all these overlapping polygons will be dissolved into a single polygon. Okay. Now if I'm clicking here, you can see all those overlapping polygons will be dissolved into a single polygon here. Okay. So all those 10-minute zone areas have been overlapped to form a single polygon. But if I'm giving it a split here, then there will not be any overlap and each polygon will be splitted where they are meeting. Okay. So if I am choosing this area, it's split like this. If I'm choosing this one, it's split like this. If I'm choosing this one, it's split like this. Okay. You can see that, right? So each polygons have been split into different polygons. So if I want this to be like in dissolving, then it actually dissolved into a single one. If this I want these separate polygons to be overlap, right? So it doesn't matter if they overlap, but they want the actual serviceable area, then I could give overlap here. But if I don't want these polygons to be like overlapping at all, and I only want different kinds of polygons, then I can give the split here. Okay. So based on what the data you want, you can actually give out these kind of things. And you can set the polygon trim distance, right? So if you want this polygon, so if you check over, this polygon is created 100 meters from my root network. Okay, you can actually increase the distance here. So if you want these polygons to be made in a much more area covering your line data, your network, then you can give the polygon trim meters as your, you can increase it or decrease it how you want. So this distance, this trim polygon distance is the distance that is covering of your polygons. How your polygons are covering your line network. So that's the trim distance here. Okay. And the disk square, if you want these separate polygons to be not separate polygons, so if you want the polygons of your single facility to be overlapping or disjoint, you can use the rings. And then this one, overlap, dissolve, and split is for different facility. The polygons of how the polygons of different facilities are working together. Okay. And in the polygons, you can either if you want only polygons, you can set the polygons. If you want only lines, you can set the lines. If you want both polygons and lines, then you can set this option. Okay. And then cutoff is the distance cutoff. So if you want actually two, three, so if it's time here, you can actually set this at 1, 3, 5, 10. So it will consider these units as cutoffs at time. So if you want 0 to 1 minute, 1 to 3, 3 to 5, 5 to 10, you can use this here. Or if it's distance you're giving, then you have to give it in the meters, right? So if it's 1 kilometer, you'll have to give out the 1,000 and the direction. So if in the case of restaurants, it's always away from facility. And if it's the case of like hospitals, right? The something like patients coming towards hospital, then you'll have to give something like towards facilities. So this direction matters on what kind of data you're working with, what kind of facility also you're working with. Okay, so that is one thing. And then if you all see here, you can also see that there are U-turns, right? So if you want U-turns are allowed in your road, you can set it. If U-turns are not at all allowed in your roads, you can set it as none. If U-turns are only allowed at dead ends, you can set it as that. Or if you want your data to be like U-turns are allowed at dead ends and intersections, then you can set this. Okay. So based on what kind of uh, sweep network you're working with, right? So if you want no U-turns to be calculated in your route, then you can set it as none. If it's okay to consider U-turns in your data, then you can set it as all. So what kind of data you are choosing, you can set the U-turns, right? And I think there's also restrictions, right? So what is the restriction? Yeah, right. And the thing is like you can also set the restrictions, right? So you have seen how we can set the line, point, or polygon barrier. So if it's like there's something like restrictions given here, you can just set it as there, and then it won't consider this area under its serviceable area, right? So if you have set the restrictions there, so these restrictions also you can give, and all these polygons will have data such as if you check out your polygon, it will have the shape length from this, its name will be based on whatever data is this. And the lines, if you're creating lines, then it will show have the distance and time taken of each road. Okay, so this is how you can actually create or find out or do analysis on the serviceable area of each facility. So whatever facility you have, you can find out. So which all areas on a that street network is actually serviceable by each facility. So whether it be the case of in the case of distance or if it's the case of time taken. Okay.